Heyo everybody, Zian over here from Nintendo Life, and today we're here to share with you our review of Little Nightmares 2 on the Nintendo Switch. Now, this review was originally written by Stuart Jipp for NintendoLife.com, but was reworked into this video by me. Have you ever been somewhere you know you shouldn't be? Fear and curiosity can entwine themselves into intoxicating shapes, dancing in your guts as you push ever forward into the dark, knowing that the consequences of being discovered will most likely be dire and terrible. That's the feeling Little Nightmares 2 goes for, and it's almost entirely successful in these ambitions. The sense of place, in fact, is as convincing as something like the original Oddworld games all the way back on the original PlayStation, with similarly weighty, panicked gameplay to the point that we'd be prepared to call Little Nightmares something of a spiritual successor to the adventures of Abe. The cinematic platformer, though, carries with it some mechanical baggage that the genre has never been able to really get past. That may be contentious, as it could reasonably be argued that the more tiresome, labored elements of the thing are part of the game's intent and the player's crucial sense of vulnerability. We believe that while that's true to an extent, there are still fundamental issues with a platform game that puts the feel of the world over the feel of the character. Because everything's so rigidly in keeping with the trappings of games like Inside and Deadlight, you will encounter instances of unclear objectives simply because what you can and can't interact with isn't always totally clear. You'll suffer arguably unfair deaths when you're caught by traps you not only can't see, but couldn't really be expected to see. In a way, you can't fault Little Nightmares 2 for this. It's entirely intentional, and definitely serves to enhance the intense, threatening atmosphere. Some, though, will be frustrated by the unfairness. The genre's customary trial and error gameplay is here in spades, and it's entirely on you whether or not you'll push past it in order to willingly experience the game on its own terms. And you definitely should, though, if you can. Little Nightmares 2 is a very good example of its type, with beautiful diorama-esque levels that manifest as the effective equivalent of the memorable single-screen platformer or fixed-angle survival horror game, while avoiding the limitations of this approach. We found almost every second of the game dripped with tension and dread, exploding into raw, often hilarious panic when we'd be discovered. And when we say we actually mean it, because Little Nightmares 2 lets you bring a friend. Early in the game, the player character Mono, who is a seemingly meek creature, eventually meets up with Six, the main character from the original Little Nightmares. You'd think this would mean some multiplayer was in store, but in an interesting wrinkle, this isn't the case. In a sense, it's disappointing, but the argument could also be made that with a friend, you could necessarily take comfort in the distance afforded by a second brain helping you with puzzles and traversal. Without one, you're responsible for not just your own life, but for that of another person. Thankfully, we didn't find that this led to the whole game feeling like an escort mission, you know, those hated of all missions. Thankfully, Six's AI is brilliant. Of course, you can see the seams where prescribed paths are being followed from time to time, or that the game allows you just that little more leeway than you'd expect to account for a second moving character. None of it, though, breaks the world or damages the rich atmosphere. Even though it would arguably be to the detriment of the carefully curated feel of this horror adventure, we still think it's a strange decision to focus so heavily on the interplay between Mono and Six while completely neglecting the idea of multiplayer. Level design is strong throughout and takes into account your second character very effectively, with them offering assists in a way that ranges from unobtrusive to crucial. As well as the exploration, platforming, stealth, and desperate escapes, there's also a nice line in slower, more tension-building moments. Beautiful areas appear fleetingly and you'll simply move on, but it's worth taking your time to appreciate the detail. For one thing, there are optional collectibles to find, such as a variety of different hats. Though admittedly, these could have a negative effect on the game's ambience if you choose to equip them. Graphically, it's all rather impressive. The world is rich with detail and performance is very good. In handheld mode, it felt to us like a locked 30 frames per second with no discernible drops, even when things get crazy. However, there is a visual trade-off. The resolution seems low, with graphics that are often seemingly blurry as a result. In docked mode, this seems less pronounced, but in a strange sort of way, the blurring actually enhances the nightmarish feel of the proceedings. It doesn't excuse it, but with a free demo available, you'll be able to make up your own mind on how you feel about this game's actual looks. We were particularly taken with the sound design too. You'll find yourself flinching in just the right spots, with brilliantly subtle ambient effects joining with loud, punchy bangs and booms when things really kick off. Little Nightmares 2 is nothing less than engaging from start to finish, with superb pacing, entertainingly varied level design, and excellent graphics and performance. Its only real flaws are based on the imprecision that comes with all games in its subgenre, as well as a few sections that feel more about trial and error than reactive survival. In our view though, this doesn't detract from a far superior sequel, and one of the best cinematic platformers we've had the privilege of enjoying. A real stylish treat. We here at Nintendo Life give Little Nightmares 2 on the Nintendo Switch an 8 out of 10. Now, I personally have spent a decent amount of time with Little Nightmares 2 as well, as I had to capture footage for this video review of Stuart's, and I have a few thoughts that I wanted to throw out quick as well. Now, one of the biggest things I want to point out is that if you're planning to play this game, if you're interested in it, try to go in as blind as possible. All the footage that we used in this video, I tried to keep the surprises to a minimum, so apologies if it felt a little boring, but the surprises that lurk around every corner are really what make this game special, and if all of them are spoiled for you, then it's going to kind of defeat some of the overall purpose of the game. I'm also pretty bummed considering that this game came from the studio that made the Stretchers, and they also made the original Little Nightmares, that this game isn't multiplayer. I fully expected it to be. I was originally surprised as well when I heard that it wasn't. But I think Stuart is right. If we did have a second player to help out with puzzles and also just help alleviate some of the stress of the game, I don't think it would be as terrifying of an experience. 6 is built more as a mechanic than as an additional player, and I think once you actually play the game, you'll sort of understand what I mean a little bit better. Feel free to let us know in the comments down below what you think of Little Nightmares 2 so far. Have you given the demo a shot? Are you planning to pick up the game? Let us all know down below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more content like this, then why don't you go ahead and scare that subscribe button by giving it a good old click, and then ring that notification bell to be notified whenever we release new videos. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Zion from Nintendo Life. Stay safe out there, and we will see you next time.